hello everybody. Our group is Cat Stevens, Alexi, Zealous, T, and Alexander. This is Zealous up here with me, and I'm Kat. So we're presenting our app ShowNoize. No filters, no fluff, just noise. Next slide. So what is ShowNoize? It is essentially a platform for discovering local underground bands, venues, and events in your area. That's basic. It's a social media app for bands and venues. So here's a little overview of our GitHub activity over the semester. As you can see, we had a big spike in the middle of February there, but overall it's been pretty even. And here's our additions and deletions by lines of code. Has some fun metrics. And our project management, this is just a picture of our Trello board, so whenever we had a task, we would put it on our Kanban board, and it would move from right to left as it was completed. And we'd assign it to people, put a due date, and put how many points it was worth, and for our project management. So now we'll do a short demo of our app. Make sure you go to System 54 first. Is it?
Yeah.
So that's like...
Yeah.
You're not signed in.
I'm not signed in.
Go to the landing page first.
Oh, yes.
You don't need to sign into the mail. Just go to the landing page, remove the /home.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the screen's an extent, so you gotta do mirror.
Windows key P. Windows key P.
That key doesn't work on mine.
Oh.
It doesn't work on my
That's so
computer.
sad.
That's why I said mine is. What?
Windows P should do it.
Oh, I really hope that key works. Ooh, surprising.
Why isn't it switching?
Why is it
Just
switching?
put it over there.
Or drag
Just
it over.
move the window. Yeah. And full screen it.
That is.
Press F11. Okay. So first we're going to sign in. This is our landing page.
Oh, I was already.
No,
signed
that's
in.
good. That's exactly what
So-
it's supposed to do. So here, why does it look like that?
Because it's full screen.
It's not supposed to look like that.
Whatever. Move on.
Well, this is our home page. It's just a mock-up right now because we weren't able to finish it because we were focusing on the other features. But it's just a general. This page will have all of your like local shows on a map view and some posters for some nearby events or things that you're following. But the main features of our app are actually in the feed and settings. So we'll start by going to our settings. In here you can edit your display name super easily, so that's your username on the site and what all your posts will show as.
Oh, if my E key would work.
And then you could just hit enter or press save.
Oh,
So
I
we
already have
has
that name.
one.
Oops.
So there's our error handling in
So
action.
you can't have the same handle. Okay.
And there it is. And then you can go to your bands or venues. So anyone can create a band or venue, and ideally multiple users will be able to manage it, but right now it's just you can have one. So let's create any new band or venue. And you just type in the name of your band or venue. It's a great band, guys.
Yep.
Everyone loves this band.
Yeah, great band.
So, and then you can edit the name of it if you want, or delete it. Oops. And it will warn you very detailed about what it will do. So you can do the same with venues, but the other feature that we have is we can actually switch between bands and venues and when you're posting. So if you want to post as Z Godwin, then
Z Godwin.
now we go to the feed page. And so this feed page will display all the posts that people have made on our site. So these are all posts that we made of our local bands and venues. And we can comment and like the posts, reply to comments, all of that. And it supports like keybinds, so you can hit enter to finish your message, all that. It's very easy to use. It's keyboard accessible, so if you just hit tab, you can actually navigate around the site just with tab and shift tab. So that's all configured. And so let's try making a post now. So we can select who we want to post as and then choose an image file. Who knows what these are?
It's ShowNoize.
Okay, that's great. And then we can write our caption for the image.
Oh, I really hope my EQ is working.
Okay, and post. And there's our post, all done. And so that concludes our demo.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things?
Yeah, there's more slides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're not done.
Yeah.
We got lots of slides. So here's our technology stack. We're using React for our front end with Next.js, and Flask, which is a Python framework for our back end. So they're totally decoupled. The front end is basically its own client-side application that makes requests to the back end. The back end has no HTML in it whatsoever. It's all JSON API requests. So our Next.js front end has client-side routing, so you can make pages on there. They're statically generated at build time. And we use SWR for API caching, which I'll go a little deeper into for a second. That makes our site a lot more performant. And then for our backend, we have OAuth login, and we use SQAlchemy to enforce a DBO model. That's a database object. It basically means that we don't have to write SQL queries, which I'll also go deeper into that. And there's a little demo of what type of thing we can do with our backend code-wise. It's very easy to make an endpoint there. That's the endpoint that tells you what your current user info is. So now our next slide. So here's a little bit more about our Next.js front end. It lets us make reusable components, so anytime we want to have some type of thing on the front end, you'll notice that a lot of there's the user switcher pop-up, but there's also, when you're making a post, you can switch users there, and that's just the same exact component. It's reused, so it lets us use things in different locations on the site without copy-pasting the code. We're using Headless UI, which is a library that makes it so we can easily implement accessible buttons, forms, and dialogues. And we're using Tailwind CSS to tie the styling to our components, so that you don't have to write really long CSS selectors or think of class names. You just write it directly on the component what it should look like. And we used Hero Icons, which is a library of free SVG icons for our various SVG icons you see, like the heart and the comment and the user circle thing. So next slide. And then what I was talking about with SWR, that's client-side caching and revalidation. So basically, when you make an API request, it's saved in the browser, the response that the API gives. And when you make an adjustment, for example, if you were to edit your display name, it automatically updates that stored cached version on your browser and immediately re-renders it. It doesn't have to make another request to the backend. So that means that when you make an action that would normally require you to re-render the page, it's actually all done on the browser. So it's very, very fast to change your username and that sort of thing. And then what I was talking about with the DBO modeling with SQAlchemy, the developers really don't have to worry about SQL injection or actually managing the database, because the schema is automatically generated by the backend when the app starts. You don't even have to create the database. It just puts it all in there. And the fields on our Python classes directly correspond to what the value is in the database. So basically, if we want to edit something or access data on the object, there's no parsing stuff in and out of rows from the database. It's just direct one-to-one. Some extra stuff we did with the development environment. Our developers can spin up a full application stack on their machine with absolutely no installation except for Docker. You have to install Docker. But then, once you install that, you run one command and you have the entire development environment. It supports hot reloading, so anytime you make a change, it automatically updates and refreshes your page, and you don't have to touch anything, so you can see your changes instantly. Makes it very easy to do our development. And we put a lot of work into making our deploy process, improving on the process that was provided to us by the professor. So normally that's a two-step process. So you build the machine templates, and then the machine templates get put onto the cloud as actual nodes. I turned it into a three-step process. So you have a machine template, and then you have a node template, which is basically like a back end or a front end or a database template. and then that turns into a node. So the middle step there basically means that every time we create a new template, we don't have to reinstall Ubuntu from scratch, like creating the entire machine. So that reduced our deploy times from about 20 minutes for a node to about 10 minutes. So it makes it a lot easier to get stuff out there in production. And our build script, we made a build script that also ensures all of the necessary configuration, files, keys, and other secrets that you would need to deploy the app. It basically makes sure that they're all there, makes it very easy to see what you need. It tells you what's missing, basically, so it's very easy to deploy stuff. Here's an example of that script here. You can just select which templates you want just by navigating around with the keyboard. Hit enter, it deploys them in the right order, you're done. So I would say our best feature is the band and venue switching. That's actually mostly done, that's all done on the client. So when you make a post, it sends like what user band or venue you'd like to post as. And the client just has a list of which bands, venues that you have access to, and it stores them locally inside your browser's local storage, so it's persistent. If you were to close the browser and reopen it, it remembers what band or venue you had selected. So you'll notice that when Zealous logged in, it was already selected as a band instead of Zealous's user. So I would say that's our coolest feature. Our toughest bug, this one's pretty complicated, but our backend uses the Vault database secrets engine. That's a special engine that basically means Vault can create database users on the fly when the backend requests one. So instead of having one credential that's used for all the backend nodes that connects to the database, each time a database node, a backend node connects to the database, it requests a new user. Vault issues that user, and it has about a 1 hour to 24-hour lease, and it has to renew that lease every time it wants to continue using that user. So Vault's pre-configured. The root of this bug is that Vault is pre-configured with a user that allows it to create those users. So it's designed specifically to create temporary users. And that user has to have access to the database so that it can create those users. Next slide. So it issues this create user command, as you can see, and grants them access to the database. But the actual thing that grants the Vault agent user to the actual Vault user access is done when Terraform deploys a node, and you can see the commands there at the bottom. So for some reason, if you go to the next slide, the query shown here, grant all privileges on the ShowNoize app database to the Vault agent, that query just doesn't work when it's initially deploying. It doesn't apply, so the Vault agent can't create new users. It doesn't have permission. So I wasn't able to solve this bug, but the workaround is anytime a backend node is deployed, you just have to run that command on the database cluster and it works. So that's our toughest bug. So a good thing to know that I think other teams would benefit from, or just in general, linting. We used a lot of linters on our project. So the linters check for code quality and functionality and make sure that it's enforcing the best practices and it's well-formed syntax. So the thing we used branch protection on GitHub to make sure that all pull requests before they can be merged have to pass linters. So 100% of our pull requests pass linters, merged ones at least. So that helped make sure that our code was not falling below standards. Next slide. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Nick?
You mentioned separating out your front end from your back end architecture for the web app.
Yes.
Can I ask what caused you to make this decision?
It's just the architecture I was most familiar with. It's called progressive web apps. That's a big whole set of standards, but progressive web apps in general basically are apps designed to run locally. They can be installed with what's called a service worker. I'm just a big fan of that specific architecture, so I chose it.
Why Next.js instead of React.js? Because you're anyways making it loosely coupled. Like backend is different and front end is different. But Next.js in the market is itself is came for the you can do the front end and backend the same app. So why the Next.js?
So I mean, Next.js really provides the routing there. So it allows the front end app to actually be more. So we originally were actually just using React like raw with Vercel. Next.js is a framework that goes around React. So it's React. It's based like around. It provides utilities for React, but it's not actually like its own UI framework. But the benefit of having it separate, like the backend, doesn't have any HTML in it, which means the backend is purely focused on the database operations and business logic. So it just decouples our interface from all the logic that actually makes our app function, and it makes it like easier to conceptualize, I think.
Okay, like if in the Next.js, if you create one folder called API and if you do the routing there, and in another folders, if you do your React.js code, it will
Actually,
that, right?
No. So the API is, we have an Nginx load balancer that transfers any API requests, anything under the /API like path, it goes to the backend. So that's how the like routing works. The Next.js is like a bunch of HTML files essentially. We could host it on a CDN. It doesn't have any like business logic involved in it.
Andre, take a last. April, then Andre.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is a great use case. How were there features that you wanted to add that you
Lots.
didn't quite get?
Lots. We have a big list. I would say the most important one was that map. We really wanted you to be able to see, one, creating events into the map of events. So you would essentially have this map, and it would show like markers for every single event around you that's coming up, or venue. And then you click on it, and it would open a sidebar view with all of the information about that. And you could check out profiles. So each like band or venue would have their own profile, and bands and venues like could link to that as a resource for like what they're doing. It's a social media for bands and venues.
My question. So I think there was like a vulnerability with some Next.js middleware a few weeks ago. Did you guys see that? And did you do anything to like see if your application was vulnerable to that? Or
Which middleware?
I don't know the specifics, but I was just curious if you guys saw that and maybe had like a
would
real world
say
experience.
It depends on the class of vulnerability, but we're probably not affected by it because I'm assuming that's something to do with server-side rendering, and all of our entire app is statically generated, so it's just HTML.
Okay.
So we would only be affected by like front-end vulnerabilities, so something like cross-site scripting or cross-site
For
request
not our
forgery.
version. It's not our
I
version,
think it's just
right?
for any middleware.
It's
March
an older version of it. We use,
12.3. I don't know what version we're using.
well, we use.
Okay.
I know it's not
I was
12.3.
just curious if you guys saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Got time for one more? Or?
Yeah, quick one, go ahead.
I love that you guys use Vault for security. Wondering if, for the Terraform setup, if you guys did anything special to protect any secrets that you had to generate to protect it from going into the state file in plain text.
No, because the build server is like secure, like it's our build. Like we don't post the state file; it's in the gitignore, and so the build server would just, if the state file has it, it's just on the build server, which the build server already has like full Vault access. So I wouldn't really consider that an attack vector. But we do have a deploy script specifically for Terraform, which will let you select which nodes you want to deploy.
Okay, last question.
Interesting thought. I think, yeah.
You said something, you did something caching in the local storage. So like what is the difference between that caching and virtual DOM? Because in the Next.js and React.js we have the virtual DOM. So what is the difference?
Between the local storage and the DOM?
You said right, like whenever you
The
create something
SWR
other
caching.
in the cache, you do the caching in the browser, right? So
Yeah.
But React.js using like React.js has that virtual DOM concept where they can manage the states.
Yeah, so I mean we have the caching like at the local storage specifically is persistent as opposed to like React's cache, which would be like when you load the page, it saves it as you navigate around the page, like the state is in there. But the local storage there specifically saves which band or venue you had selected, so that if you were to log out, log back in, or close the browser and reopen it, which completely clears everything, that specific data would stay around. Otherwise, the caching is more of like, while the app is running, it's caching the data that the back end was storing, or at least the responses from the back end, so that it can re-render if it needs to make any adjustments to it.
Good. That's excellent work. We can pick that up and detailed questions there. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go to the next one.